is film. We also remember the life of civil rights pioneer Unita Blackwell. Folks, it's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
On June 17, 2015, white supremacist and mass murderer Dylan Roof gunned down 9 people at the historic Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. In a powerful new film that premieres in June, Emanuel tells the story of that tragic day and how the power of forgiveness brought a community together.
When he spoke to me, I was on the floor looking up at him from under the table. He just stopped and he said, did I shoot you yet? And I said, no. And he said, I'm not going to. I'm going to leave you here to tell a story.
In a church, there's going to be a response.
Oh, but God works in mysterious ways.
Strange fruit.
Joining me now is one of the producers of the documentary, Dimas Salaberios. Dimas, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
It's a privilege to be on with you.
First and foremost, why did you want to do this? What is your connection with Emanuel AME?
So I was a first responder to the shooting. I was in New York City, and my wife, Tiffany, woke me up and said there was a shooting in Charleston. And then myself and my 2 kids very quickly said, well, let's fly down. We flew down, showed up to the scene, started giving money and prayers to some of the family members. No idea, no thought of doing a film, just to minister to the families. And about 1.5 years later, a film director who had a successful film, his name is Brian Ivey, said, I have a few projects in my heart. And when he said Emanuel, we just leaped back like, do you know we were there? He didn't even know we were there. I said, I know all the family members. And then we said, but the one thing we want to do is not do this film for money, but we want to bless the family members with the producer's gift that we would normally receive for this kind of work. And I said, I'm all in, and that led to the journey of making the movie Emanuel.
Now, obviously, folks were shocked and stunned when this shooting took place. For you to be in New York and then all of a sudden say, we're going down, that's certainly different from what a lot of folks who were just simply watching it from afar.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. So in the sense of, I'm not just going to sit back and watch the news anymore. I have to see it for myself. I have to show up. I was in Haiti when the earthquake happened. I flew down as a first responder. And what I saw reports on the news as juxtaposed to what I was seeing, the beautiful Haitian response on the ground, it really upset me. And from that point on, I said, as a Christian, I'm not just giving over our God-calling gifts to the world to do whatever they want to do, but we need to suit up and show up like the original church did, and that's a model that I live by.
This story was obviously shocking to a lot of folks. I mean, at that time, it was the worst mass shooting in a church, and we've actually had several taking place ever since then. It is still stunning for people to think that here were folks who were in a Bible study, and this white supremacist could sit there and have folks pray over him and with him, and then this actually happened.
Yeah, it's, those family members to me are martyrs, and they are heroes. And the black church has always been open to anyone to come in and fellowship with them. And what he said was, after he felt the love in the room, that he almost thought about not going through with it, but then he said, forget that, and then went to shoot and kill so many incredible people. And it just shows, the reality is there's still an existence of racism in this world. Evil still exists in this world. But I think as individuals and as the family members displayed, hate cannot win. And we always must stand against unrighteousness and evil. And I think that story is going to be told on June 17th when this film comes out like America's never seen before.
I was at an event, and I was listening to Nikki Haley talk. And she, of course, was the governor then of South Carolina. And she was talking about all they went through and the Confederate flag coming down in South Carolina. And I'm sitting there, and I'm going, yeah, but I'm not going to sit here and give you massive amounts of credit for taking that flag down when it was black blood that had to be shed in order for it to go down. And it was very interesting because there were folks around me who were sort of like, why do you have that position? I said, because if you understand the history of black people, there's not been a single thing that has happened in the history of America where black blood was not spilled first before it happened. If you go back to the Civil Rights Act of 64, Voting Rights Act of 65, Fair Housing Act of 68, all of those massive developments, it let black people died first. And then America said, okay, we better respond. And that's also what I think about, people were talking about again after the fact what happened, but it was black blood that was shed.
Yeah, I think the blood of African Americans, there's something special and powerful that takes place when people see the blood. When I think of the blood of Jesus and the shedding of innocent blood, and I think people have the reality of seeing black blood is not the aggressor in these matters, it's the victim. And I think it hits this country in a way that nothing else does. And there's white leadership currently that leads the country, and I think people respond, and I wish they would respond through other ways, and I hope and pray that this country gets better.
A lot of folks focused on forgiveness. And what struck me was that after 9/11, a lot of folks didn't have the same posture of forgiveness. When I think about other things that have happened, and it is as if when something affects African Americans, there is this notion, this idea that, they kept asking the question, can you forgive? And a lot of black folks were saying, no, I might be able to forgive, but it's going to take a while. But it seemed in the aftermath that so much attention was just on that, as opposed to still the pain, the agony, the PTSD that resulted from this tragic shooting.
Yeah, I think there's something, and the family members can say this way better than me. Something supernatural happened in that bond hearing. People did not come in there planning to forgive whatsoever. but they said the presence of God showed up in a way that was beyond what we can articulate, that made their hearts forgive, but at the same time, they sought justice. Charleston is one of the first places that we now have someone of a hate crime on death row that has killed African Americans. Charleston did not burn. So something powerful has happened in Charleston. I don't think it satisfies everyone, but the bloodshed of African Americans and the death and slavery and the hurt and the pain, I don't know what would ever make me feel totally vindicated, but I can just say that God showed up, and not everybody forgives, but a large majority of the family members did.
Last question for you. Of course, we're here at the Museum of the Bible. First of all, there's going to be a screening of the documentary, and so Demos has to get there as well. And so then we're going to have a panel afterwards that I'll be moderating. We'll also be live streaming that. So trust me, you want to come back for that. We're dealing still with white supremacy in this country. There was a white man in Kentucky who wanted to go kill black folks in the church. The church was locked. Instead, he went to a Kroger and killed 2 black folks in that Kroger. There was a white man in New York who killed a black man with a sword, and he said he wanted to kill other African Americans as well. Heather Heyer gets killed in Charlottesville, Virginia, where they had the march there as well. What do you hope this documentary, this film, will say to this nation when it drops on June 17th, 2 days before Juneteenth, which is, of course, the only national holiday, the only holiday in Texas, of course, where I'm born and raised, as a state holiday, but it's the only recognition of slavery in its sort of holiday. What do you want the nation to learn when this drops?
I think by watching this film on June 17th, and then it'll also be on June 19th, the date that you're describing, I think the nation will really reflect. I think this film will bring great unity. It's one of the most balanced films that others have said they have seen in their lives that deal with race. So I think it's going to force people to not only examine, but take a reflective look at how they treat African Americans, how African Americans should be treated, the experience that happened in Charleston, the uniqueness of the city not burning, the uniqueness of forgiveness going along with justice, and also not just empty forgiveness, but real acts. And I think that's going to create a dialogue like we have never seen before. And we're honored to have you here to help spearhead that dialogue. This is historic even tonight that we're in the Museum of Bible screening right here in Washington, D.C.
And it's going to be on about 1,000 screens when it debuts?
Yes, in 1,000 theaters nationwide, and they can find it at manualmovie.com.
All right. Well, Demos, I appreciate it for a bunch, and we'll be chatting in about an hour.
Oh, thank you.
All
Huge
right.
fan of yours.
I appreciate it.
Our family loves you, and we just love the work that you've always done
I appreciate
up to this point.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, chat with you in a second. All right, folks, let's now bring in our panel there, of course, in our studios in D.C. Malik Abdul, he is Vice President, Black Conservative Federation. Amisha Cross, she's political commentator, Sinclair Broadcast Group, and Kelly Bethea, Communications Strategist. I want to throw this out to all three of you, that issue that I raised with Demos, and that is forgiveness. That was something that we constantly heard on cable news and on broadcast news in the aftermath of the murders of Emanuel AME. And there were a lot of African Americans who were really, really upset because there was this whole notion that somehow for black people, we always have to quickly go to forgiveness. I didn't hear that same thing after the synagogue shooting that took place in California or the synagogue shooting that took place in Pittsburgh. What is about America that always wants black folks to quickly forgive as opposed to how other people have reacted to these sort of stories? Anybody can jump in.
So I'll start it off. I don't know if, particularly in the case with Mother Emanuel, I think what we had we actually had the family members, and I think you guys mentioned that in the discussion that you had, the family members who were actually prayerful. You know, they talked about that. They were very open in their Christianity. And so I think that's just a part of the fabric of who we are. I think we just, during the 400 years that we've been here, you know, you can say that we've actually been forgiving in ways that many people would not. I think a distinction between what happened after Mother Emanuel and some of the other instances that you referenced is that there wasn't that same focus from the actual parishioners themselves on what their religion does. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but the parishioners there, the victims, they were very open. The families were very open about their forgiveness and their honesty, their Christianity. So I think there's just a distinction in how they responded and the other people responded as well.
Kelly, Amisha, go ahead.
The original question is why you think this happens, the forgiveness part?
In terms of when things have happened to African Americans, America wants black folks to quickly move to forgiveness. When you have similar stories that take place, it's not like that's always the case.
I think a component of this is the fact that it's almost expected that we die. I think that we still are in a stage of our citizenship in this country where we are still considered second-class citizens. So when something negative happens to us, it's almost kind of like a grin and bear it because you're not even supposed to be a citizen. There's that component to it. You don't ask a Jewish person to stop mourning the Holocaust, but you ask us to stop mourning, 400 plus years of enslavement, Jim Crow, and just the overall disenfranchisement of an entire race of people. Specifically when it comes to Christianity, I think it's the way that African Americans have taken into that religion is that we really do embrace the entire Bible and specifically the concept of forgiveness. And I feel that whiteness, not necessarily white people, but the concept of whiteness exploits that. So when events like this happen, we have a situation where our core is to forgive, but you also have the other side of that coin where people are exploiting our willingness to forgive. And that's the disconnect. That's the problem.
Amisha?
To make sense of an America that has, by and large, always treated African Americans unfairly, has not really recognized our pain throughout slavery, throughout the post-slavery era, down through Jim Crow and beyond. I think that for African Americans specifically, holding on to religion, specifically holding on to the aspect that says that things can get better, holding on to the aspect that says that we should forgive, and not holding that in, because as an African American, I think that it becomes very hard for you to continue to move, continue to exist in this country if you remain in that constant state of anger, or that constant state of feeling like someone has their foot around your neck or on your throat. And I think that for the majority of the population, when they think about forgiveness, at least today, when we're seeing more and more people rise up, revolt, get really upset about these things, it's a huge juxtaposition with what we have seen historically. I will say that there are a lot of people who, after that, after the church incident, did not forgive. I think that it speaks a huge testimony to the family specifically, that they came out and they actually talked about their forgiveness, but also to the rest of the nation. Because as you stated, there are incidents of shootings in mosques. There are incidents of shootings of other religions. And what we have seen is a group of people who responds very differently. But we also see an action of America that understands their pain. Even with the forgiveness mantra here, we don't see an America that still remembers this. I'm very grateful that the movie is out, or the movie is coming out, just because people have swept this under the rug. We will hear about other instances of abuse on Christians day in and day out. We will hear about it when something happens to Jews. We do not hear about it when it happens to black churchgoers. Yeah. And I'm very grateful that this is a conversation we continue to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
May I add?
Well, in fact, Malik, I'll tell you this here, and this was the issue that I took issue with. When you had the bombings in Sri Lanka, when you had, and all of a sudden you had conservatives like Charlie Kirk, they were out there blasting Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, others saying, why aren't y'all saying anything about how Christians are being attacked? Frankly, the White House didn't say jack for weeks about the burning down of 3 black churches in Louisiana. I didn't see Republicans out there talking about and condemning that white supremacist, the son of a deputy sheriff who was arrested. Literally weeks went by. And then, of course, when the White House, at the National Press Service, they finally decided to say something and sent Vice President Mike Pence down there. That's the issue that I have, Malik, when these things have happened to black folks, and it is as if it didn't happen. You had Republicans and conservatives who were up in arms about Christians being attacked in other parts of the world, and they literally said nothing about 3 black churches being burned in Louisiana.
Well, but the reasons that they said didn't say, I don't know. Part of that, I would definitely say welcome to politics, unfortunately. But particularly when we're talking about Emanuel, Mother Emanuel, there was widespread condemnation of what happened there. And I think that in that particular...
No. I'm broadening this conversation, Malik, beyond just Emanuel. What I'm saying is this. What I'm saying right now, this took place just a couple of months ago. And it was amazing to me to sit there and literally watch all these people talk about Christian persecution all across the world. And there was silence, absolute silence to the burning, the torching of 3 black churches in Louisiana. And you had a GoFundMe campaign that was led by Yashar Ali, raised about $1.8 million. And all of these people who were critical of folks on the left, saying, why did Obama say Easter worshipers? They said nothing about black churches being burned down. And all I'm saying is, if you're going to walk around being all Christian and holy, you better say something about black churches being burned down.
No, absolutely. But we have to also acknowledge that we're really living in a very politically toxic climate. I don't think that these issues should be political at all. I do feel as if that when things happen, particularly with Mother Emanuel, there was a focus on race for sure, but that was really an attack on Christianity in the same way that when these assailants go into these mosques and kill people in mosques, that it was an attack on their particular religion. I don't think that we pay enough attention on that. When the 3 black churches, yeah, of course, I saw the coverage on Fox News and I saw some of the coverage on some of the other networks, but it was still scant coverage in comparison to what we saw in the cathedral. The response to the cathedral, and
of course, Notre Dame, yeah,
and understandably, that was a national treasure, if you will. But I don't think that it's a Republican or Democrat thing. I think just as a whole, we are not responsive to these sort of attacks on our Christian faith, and many times we're mocked for that. When you hear people say, well, I'm tired of praying, or I've heard enough of praying.
It does look very different.
This wasn't a religious issue, though.
But Amicia, the attack on Emanuel 9 and the attack on those 3 churches in Alabama, that was not an attack on a Christianity. Right. That was an attack on blackness.
No, I think it's an attack on both. I'm not saying it to the exclusion. I actually think that because we don't separate.
Dylan Roof did not go to a black church to kill Christians.
Well, he went to a black church to kill black people. Like, let's be real. If we're gonna speak it, we have to speak it in the way that he intended. At the end of the day, this was a white supremacist with a white supremacist agenda to kill as many innocent black people as he possibly could. He chose a historical church with strong relevance for not only black faith and black Christianity, but also one that was known for holding civil rights era meetings, one that was known for training advocates throughout the community. He chose this church with that in mind. And let's not forget, the most segregated place in America is church on Sunday. So when we talk about Christianity, we have to talk about the Christianity that America sees. There's white Christianity and there's black Christianity. And it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you are on, that is what people view the lens through.
I totally agree with that, and but I think that we don't have to exclude the fact that what we're talking about, in my opinion, still is an attack on Christianity. I think you can actually you can attack them because they're black, but you can also attack them because of their religion. And I think that's what played out. And when you're asking why don't we have the same response, I think that that's part of what plays into that, because we don't have those sort of layered conversations.
Well, then why didn't the evangelicals come out? Why didn't the evangelicals come out after those church burnings happened? Why didn't the evangelical Christians, largely Southern white folks who claim that, come out and actually speak against it? Why didn't they come out and do something?
I don't think
Because
that was.
They were completely
but I don't
silent.
think that that's an evangelical white Christian thing.
But
as I said, if we look across the networks in general, there was scant coverage paid to the issue.
Oh, you're right.
Period.
Media
I'm saying-
coverage, neither side helped.
So that's not a white evangelical Southern thing. That is just in a climate of where we are, where we don't talk about those sort of conversation. And that's my point about isolating it to just race. No, we can actually add religion into this conversation as well.
Malik, I would agree with you on the layering of the attack. I would
Folks, this is real simple, Malik. You can you can dance around this.
That's not a dance.
But the bottom line is this here. Misha is absolutely right, and that is this here. White conservative evangelicals were quiet about those 3 black churches burning in Louisiana. They were quiet. I went to their Twitter feeds. I saw nothing. I saw Republicans in Congress who love to stay up there and they'll wave the Christian banner. But when it comes to black Christians, it's amazing how silent they get.
But something that you also need to take into consideration, I would agree with Malik if that were true. But the bottom line is, Dylan Roof was convicted of a hate crime, particularly because of the race component. Mm-hmm. He went into a black church. He didn't go into a white church. He didn't go into a Hispanic, Latinx church. He went into a black church specifically because there were black people in it. And if he were considering the Christian component, there would have been, a different church, frankly, because it's not like there aren't, interdenominational, multiracial churches in South Carolina. But he went to one that is specifically geared towards black history, black churches, the black plight in general. But he wasn't considering Christianity when he went into that church. He was considering black people. And that's why he was convicted of a hate crime.
All right, folks, I got to talk about this disturbing video of a pregnant black woman. This video, of course, we saw today. A pregnant black woman who was shot and killed in an apartment complex last night in Baytown, Texas, which is a few miles from Houston. I'm just warning folks in advance. It could trigger for some folks, but here is this shocking video.
Pop the...
Again, this happened in Baytown, Texas. The police department there has not released the identity of the officer. In a statement, they said that the officer approached her because of some outstanding warrants. I'm just trying to understand, Amisha. Outstanding warrants leads to death?
In no scenario. After further digging into this story, it turns out that this woman was clinically labeled a paranoid schizophrenic. She was someone who had recently lost her living situation. She was coming up on an eviction notice, and that's the reason that police had been called to her place previously. The officer knew her. The officer was familiar with the community. He was familiar with her story. This woman needed help. She did not deserve what happened to her. It's very disappointing, but it also goes down that continued trek that we have seen multiple times over, where a police officer is going to argue that he in some way felt threatened. In this case, he said that it was because she grabbed the taser and tased him. We now know from everyone seeing the video at this point that absolutely did not occur. So the officers are trying to backtrack and try to figure out a way to make this story work. What we also know is that when you are working with someone who has a verified mental illness, there's a specific training that officers are supposed to be given for this. Even the way in which he decided to try to restrain her was against everything that they are taught. So I think that we have a lot to deal with here. One, the police behavior in general, but also looking at what that actual academy, what that actual police union is going to say coming up after this, but also the way we view and treat people who have mental illnesses as well. Again, this is not something that is conjecture. She was a paranoid schizophrenic on medication, something that everyone knew.
Kelly, here's my whole deal, okay? And I have never, nor will I ever condone hitting a woman. But you're a cop. Smack her. Hit her with your elbow. Knock her down. You don't pull your gun out and shoot.
It's not necessary.
She's now dead.
And for what, right? Because like my panelist was saying, she was, clinically schizophrenic. She was clinically mentally ill. And we don't know whether he had training for situations like that, but you would think that common sense should tell you that even you knew the person, you knew her disposition, you knew all of these things about her before encountering her last night, and yet you still went this route. And I said something a couple weeks ago regarding police officers and other people in client-facing situations. If you have an inherent racial bias that you cannot control, you should not be in this job. And I'm not talking about just police officers. We've had a slew of just people who just do not understand that Black Lives Matter. So if you are a cop, if you are a teacher, if you are a doctor, a flight attendant, we had a story on there before, landlord, what have you. If you have a disposition to act upon your racial bias in your job, despite whatever training you may have, despite what your superiors tell you or not tell you, you should not be in this job. You need to find something else that does not threaten my life and my quality of life just because I'm living.
We have another African-American, Malik, who is dead. This woman is dead. She can't be brought back. And it's as if when as black people, we will resort to grabbing the gun and firing. I don't, maybe y'all can, I didn't see anything in that video. Nothing. Well, that officer, somehow his life was threatened and it required deadly force.
Yeah, this is another unfortunate incident. We've had many of them before. I tried to watch it. It was kind of really uncomfortable for me to watch, so I couldn't watch the entire thing. But just listening to it, it reminded me of George Zimmerman when he followed Trayvon Martin. I don't know if everybody remembers that background.
We all remember.
Yeah, just listening to that. And so this is another incident. We've seen so many like it before. I think in this case, the officer, I think he was Hispanic or something, but it actually shows that it really doesn't matter. There seems to be, irrespective of race, the race of the actual officer, that there is this notion, this heavy-handedness when it comes to the treatment of black bodies. We've seen it time and time again, and this is just another example of such. I can't imagine whether the woman was pregnant. Of course, that makes it even worse, but I can't imagine, just based on that short visual that I saw, any circumstance why that woman should be dead now. And it's unacceptable. We have to do more to address it. We have to talk about it on shows like this. These type of things they don't just have to be on these type of shows. These are things that we need to actually push out to our other network, to our network media, to really make sure that they're focusing on it. So when this black Twitter that we have, make sure that the networks that you like, it may not be Fox News or it may not be Roland's show, make sure that you are out there pushing these stories to get the type of attention, because many times we don't hear much about it until we're on Roland's show. And so I think that we need to actually do a better job in how we're advocating for these type of things too. But this is unacceptable, 100% unacceptable, and I can't imagine a circumstance why the officer, other than some bias, I can't imagine a circumstance why the officer felt like his life was in danger.
Or why he is actually on paid leave right now.
First of all, good luck. The other networks actually focusing on this case has to rise to a certain level. Of course, such as the Eric Garner case. Speaking of that, lawyers battling over whether the NYPD officer who killed Eric Garner should be fired for using the chokehold to kill Eric Garner. In defense, Daniel Pantaleo's attorney said, y'all, check this out, that Pantaleo saved Garner's life by keeping him from falling through the plate glass window. Garner's dead. And so I got to ask the panel there, I'll start with you, Kelly. I'm just trying to figure out, how did Pantaleo save the life of Garner when Garner died?
He didn't. I mean, I could expound upon that, but it's just quite simple. He did not. I think that the lawyer for Pantaleo is just really grasping at straws to, save his client's skin at this point. But it's been clear for the past, 4 years or so since this has happened, that there was absolutely no reason for it to have escalated to the point of Eric Garner's death. The fact that this is not a trial for murder and really just a hearing as to whether he's going to keep his job is disgusting and racist in its own right. But to answer your question, Eric Garner's dead. So clearly, even if that were the case, like he lied, it's just simply not true.
Malik, again, what you have here are these creative stories by police officers. First, we were told, his attorneys, it wasn't a chokehold, even though the New York Police Department said it was indeed a chokehold. Second of all, 5 years later, this is a hearing 5 years after Eric Garner died, and now this guy is actually getting a hearing, and you literally float out a BS story. He saved his life? Come on.
Roland, if we were to just try to be logical and understand what it is that the officer is alleging here, he's saying that, you could have died one way, but I killed you another way. That's essentially what he's saying. That you could have died one way, but I saved you, and so I killed you another way. That's essentially what he did. This Eric Garner is dead because he was selling a Lucy. He was selling singles, as they call him here in D.C. He was selling singles on the block. That's why Eric Garner is dead. And the idea that they had to put that much force on him, on his throat, that he ends up dying after that, and then it's insulting for the officer, for his lawyers to come up with this, as we say down south, this cockamamie excuse about him possibly dying another way. It is insulting, and it is something that, once again, it shows how black bodies are treated, how black bodies are viewed. And I remember, I think in that case, there was a grand jury or something. I think that they acquitted the guy, but that was a jury of our peers. What does it say that a jury of our peers are not able to bring any charges or come to any agreement as far as charges in a case like this, where a guy who is dead, because not for committing any type of felony, but at most that's a misdemeanor. And so the fact that he's dead now, and we've had so many similar stories since then, it's infuriating. It's infuriating, and that's something else that we should push back against. But I don't know what our remedy is in this case.
Well, I'll tell you what, Amisha, you don't have a jury of our peers in Staten Island where this took place. Ain't that many black folks in Staten Island? Right. You should go ahead.
And selling loose cigarettes, actually, in most places, isn't even a misdemeanor. You would get a simple citation and walk away. Right. And I've seen it happen. There are, young people of all races who've been caught selling cigarettes on the street, and in most cases, they just brush it aside. Some people don't even get citations. In this case, you saw something that was extreme. You saw an officer who clearly had a vendetta, and I'll plainly say it, against black men. Because the way that he responded there was after years of something being, brought up in his soul. He really came for this man, and it was a lot more than just some loose cigarettes. You have somebody on the ground who is literally begging for their life, wheezing and letting you know that they are dying. Literally, he's telling you he cannot breathe, and you do not let up. This man was in no way violent. He was no way of a threat, and literally was technically being charged with something or, being brought in for something that wasn't even a forceful act. So there was absolutely no reason for the response that this officer gave. And to act as though, or to say now that, he saved him from something, completely ridiculous. You can't save a man who you killed.
Yeah. All right, folks, we'll keep giving you these updates on that NYPD case, and hopefully there's justice in the death of Eric Garner. Going to a break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about several things, including what's up with this movie called Loqueesha? White guy imitating a black woman as a radio show host, and parents. Wall Street Journal had a story about these white parents who went to therapy because they were fighting with their kid over the cell phone. Uncle Roro could have took care of that in about 3 minutes. I'm going to break it down next. Roland Martin Unfiltered. Roland Martin Unfiltered. YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. Hey, family, I'm inviting you to come out swinging and join me for a day of golf at the University for Parents Golf Tournament on Saturday, June 22nd in Southwest Atlanta's Wolf Creek Golf Course. It's a golf tournament with a purpose, a fundraiser for the University for Parents, a program designed to empower parent learners through education, inspiration, and support. This is a part of Susan Taylor's National Cares Mentoring Movement. And, of course, I've been a supporter of them. And, of course, when you empower the parents, you empower the children as well. The location of the tournament is 3000 Union Road. 3000 Union Road, and the shotgun start will be at 9 a.m. If you want to register, go to www.uforparents, letter U, uforparents.org. Letter uforparents.org, or you can call 770-316-3487. We want to sell out all of our slots, and I certainly hope to see you there. All right, for my panel, I was, Lord have mercy, I was reading the Wall Street Journal today, and I came across this story where teens are buying burner phones to hide what they do on the internet from their parents. Now, the deal is, and this story talked about this one particular family where they want to limit the screen time of their child. So at 8 p.m., she had to turn her phone over to her parents each night. Well, she said that a lot of her friends, they came online around 8 o'clock, and she felt left out. And so the family, oftentimes, she would sneak into the parents' room and grab her phone, and they would wake up in the morning with her phone right next to her. First of all, how in the hell your door not locked? But I'm going to deal with that later. So then the parents discovered that the girl was getting burner phones from classmates, all because they were on social media. The mama and the daddy, y'all, went to counseling to deal with this battle. They said it was 4 years of hell fighting with their daughter. At one point, she had a boyfriend, and she had some provocative photos of her and the boyfriend on her phone. The parents asked for the password. She said no. All I got to know is, how is her ass still walking? Panel, one of y'all take it away. I'm just letting y'all know right now. First of all, you came into my room and took the phone. Ass whooping. Hashtag team whip that ass. Second of all, using a burner phone. Hashtag team whip that ass. And then I asked you for the password. You don't give it to me. Let me tell y'all, my nieces tried that. My wife took the cell phone of my nieces. Y'all can't use your phone. Not going to happen. Then one of my nieces had the nerve to be acting wild and out, acting a fool, talking smack to some other girl. And then there's one girl, she started bullying her two younger sisters because she was acting a fool on social media. This is exactly how the conversation went. If I got to call you another time because you acting a fool on social media, Roland gonna fly to Houston and whoop your ass. Do you understand? Trust me, Roland will not be going to counseling dealing with some teenager over damn cell phone. Kelly.
Why me first?
All right.
No,
Amisha.
I got it. All right. So, first and foremost, I have no children, so my commentary on this is limited. My issue here is...
Oh, it's not? You got nieces? You got nieces and nephews?
I have a baby nephew, adorable, 2 years old, so I'm not there yet. But
well, if his ass was 12, assume he's 12.
I am not a proponent of hitting children. There's a slew of reasons why. And that is your prerogative. That is everybody's prerogative. I have friends who are in the field regarding child welfare, and I've read her studies and things like that. So I'm not necessarily a proponent of it. Again, I'm not a parent, so I can't walk in those shoes. What I will say is that if you are a parent and you have an authoritative dynamic with that child from jump, things like this don't happen. If you have a situation in which your child is completely belligerent and you do not hit them, then I guess they went the right route. But at the end of from what I read of the article, she had already moved out of the house first, then came back in at 18 as an adult.
No.
That wasn't what happened?
Was, okay, this went on for like 3 years.
Okay.
And then after the whole deal with the boyfriend, she moved out to go live with somebody else.
Right.
And then she moved back and she said, well, things had gotten better, Amisha. We're communicating better. I really think counseling helped them. I also saw how immature I was.
So there are several issues here. First and foremost, I agree that there are some missteps that would get a kid to think that it was okay to respond in this way. Because she had at least 3 or 4 alternate strategies to making this work should her phone be taken away. With that being said, I am not somebody who was against giving those children whippings personally. I got them when I was a kid, turned out fine. And I think that for a lot of people, when you're talking about child rearing, there is no one size fits all. But when you see a situation where your kid is belligerent and blatantly ignoring you, and to the point where you feel like you have to have counseling for it because the kid has developed all of these ways to have access to this phone and social media, even though you've tried everything you could or everything they thought they could to prevent it, that's a problem. At any point, what the parents could have done was, who's paying for this phone? I'm sure it's not the girl. Cut the whole thing off. Beyond that, make sure that there are boundaries set early. One of the things that I've found, and I'm not a mom, but I've worked with enough youth to know, and do happen to be an aunt, is that when you start giving kids boundaries early on and repercussions when they step outside of them, you are less likely to see them bounce like this girl did later. Every kid will try you, regardless of how great your child rearing has been. There comes a stage where kids will do the most. But I do think that once you have already set that groundwork, they know that there are only certain bounds they can act within. And it doesn't matter what Carrie's doing down the street or Bob around the corner, you can't do it in this house.
Hey, Malik, let me explain something to you, okay? Zoom this camera out. Let me explain something to you. I'm going to show you something. I got 2 cell phones right here. Let me tell you how Uncle Roro would do this here. Imagine my niece was standing right here. And I got my cell phone and her cell phone right here. Imagine me doing this here. Don't you touch that cell phone. I dare you. That's all I got to say. Trust me, if I took your phone and her ass, we woke up and the phone was laying next to her, meaning she snuck into the room and took the phone, all I'm saying is she would have trouble sitting down for a week.
Right. Hey, I will say that I'm also
touch that phone.
I am not a proponent.
Touch it.
Lay
hands on that phone. See what happens.
Like an electric dog collar. You already know.
Yeah.
So no.
That phone gonna be like a hot oven. Don't touch it. You're gonna get burned.
Well, and part of that, Roland, is that you instilled that early on, and I think that's what we're dealing with here. We were talking about setting boundaries. Well, you let that be known early on what the repercussions are if certain things happen. I'm not a proponent of physical punishment simply because I see a lot of that in my community where kids are publicly disciplined in the name of physical punishment, and we've seen studies after studies to show what happens to them later on in life, particularly for black boys. Now, this particular case, this is some foolishness. We know it's some foolishness, and we can just...
I'm telling y'all right now, all y'all parents out here, y'all keep running around talking about new kids, new world. No, it's not. Your ass not going to be on that cell phone past 8 o'clock.
Because I said so.
You ain't paying for the phone. You ain't paying for the Wi-Fi. You're not paying for the service. And so if I tell you you're not going to be on the phone, you're not going to be on the phone. Me and my wife are not going to counseling because your little crazy ass. That ain't happening. That's not going to happen. I'm going to tell you right now. This also, my dad told me point blank. My daddy said, Roland, he said, you know when your ass grown? When you paying all the bills. The same story talked about how the girl was paying for her phone and some car insurance. No. You got to pay all of the bills. All of the bills mean you get no parental support. That's when you grown. My dad came to my house once and said something about something, made some kind of remark about something in my house, and I went, hey, who pay all the bills here? And he said, son, you right. And he backed off and he went and sat down. That's all I'm saying. So I'm telling you, I'm sick and tired of these parents walking around here. Y'all got some crazy kids out there who are losing their mind, and y'all going crazy because they staying up all night texting their friends on these various apps. My nieces knew the rule. First of all, I ain't have to deal with it. Jackie dealt with it. And so you can't have a phone and have your own password. I got the right to go unlock your phone at any given time. Do you understand? We even got the apps on the phone that track your little ass. So wherever you are, we know where you are. We got one of the apps on the apps that also tracked if they in the car with somebody else, how fast the car going. And so, don't think you're going to be with your friends and y'all sitting here speed racing. Oh, yeah. I'm going to get y'all the name of the app. I forgot. I will text my wife. But no, this app allows for you to literally, you can be watching the app and go, while your ass in the car, y'all going 65 miles an hour.
That's some big brother.
Wow. That's some creepy stuff.
I've never heard
No, that ain't big brother.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
No, it's not. That's called Uncle Roro. Damn it, I pay the bills. I get to make all the shots. That's all I'm saying.
And that's entirely your prerogative. That's entirely your prerogative. In this case, I actually feel like they did need therapy because there's like a component of self-esteem and authoritative issues there within the parents that they felt like they couldn't come to their child as a parent.
Right.
Now, in other situations where there is an authoritative figure, that dynamic has been in place, and this child still acts this way, then, God be with you. But in this case, it seemed like there were underlying issues there beyond just the phone.
Yeah.
So I'll put that out there.
Crazy girl. Yes.
There was some,
yes.
Yeah.
Crazy child.
Yeah. Clearly there was.
All right, y'all. Yeah. Speaking of crazy, another edition of crazy ass white people.
Oh Lord.
This wasn't it?
We don't have it. All right, we don't have the stinger. All right, y'all know we always got to play the stinger. All right, so here's the deal. So, y'all, this white man thought it was okay to make a movie while pretending to be a black woman. Look at this craziness.
You always seem to say the right thing to just the right person. What's your secret?
I'm really just talking to myself. I don't charge for my advice.
Well, you should, because it was amazing. I saw this, and I thought of you. You will be a hit in no time.
Welcome to the Joe Show. I submitted myself to a radio station for my own show.
Well, congratulations.
They rejected me.
Well, congratulations, then.
You weren't right for your own show?
Jason skipped it. You need to get the money for this school.
$13,000 a semester? That's who needs their own show. If I was a black woman, I'd be perfect.
Loqueesha. She's brilliant. I know. Get her in here. Loqueesha gonna be
the biggest thing in radio, but I still need my anonymity.
You nervous? Very. It's not a crime. It's theater.
You live with Loqueesha. What's your problem?
Hi, Loqueesha. It's Bree.
Oh, I ain't talking to you, not the way you sound. Next caller.
You go, girl.
You just be good to her. If you good to yourself, you can be good to others. But don't be too good, because the police will come around.
Yeah.
Where did you get this?
I got another job.
Doing what?
Consulting work. What the hell would you know about being a white guy anyway? I know quite a bit.
Loqueesha is a real role model for every African-American woman on this planet.
Like the whole city has Loqueesha mania.
I am Loqueesha, officer.
What was that?
I think I might be a black woman trapped in a white man's body.
You need to talk to Loqueesha. Just because she's a woman and a black person doesn't mean that she doesn't understand you.
Is this really happening?
I'm on a bridge above the river, and I'm gonna jump.
But thanks for calling. Enjoy your jump.
I gotta start listening to her.
The man featured in the trailer is director and producer of the film, Jeremy Seville. Black Twitter's been dragging him since the trailer was released. He responded over the weekend comparing his film to the Wayans brothers' 2004 hit, White Chicks. Black Twitter didn't have it. The movie is set to be released in July. We'll see. Kelly, your thoughts?
Let's just pretend this movie wasn't inherently racist and minstrel-like. Just from the trailer alone, it's not funny. Just from the trailer alone, it's poorly written. It's poorly acted. It's poorly produced. It's poorly shot. And it's just completely unoriginal. Adding the racist component to it, he doesn't even sound like a black woman that I know. From people down in the Bible Belt to as far north as Chicago to as far west as California. I don't know anybody who sounds like this who is a black woman. So it's just wrong on so many levels and just so insulting, because it's clear that nobody who was a black woman who had any sense of integrity about herself was a part of the filmmaking process. And for all the black people who were on that film, I understand that a check is a check, but do some soul searching before you get your next one.
Amisha, in the words of 50 Cent, get the strap.
He caricatured black women, and I can't say there are some who sound like that, Diamond and Silk, for instance. But they are also caricatures trying to get a check. At the end of the day, when you see a white band who clearly has this view and this lens of black women, it is problematic. But I think it's also an enigma of a culture that does not value black women, does not see black women beyond a certain scope, and likes to, regardless of how many degrees we get, how far we excel in our careers, still pigeonhole you into this one type or this one stereotype of black womanhood. And I think that to see a white man who is always seen, at least in this country, but I would probably say globally, as being at the top of the echelon, actually choose to, because he could not get a job that he wanted, one that was specifically open to minorities, choose to put himself in that place, I think is also deeply offensive. There are so many layers where this film just does not work. First and foremost, it's not funny. Secondly, it definitely plays on every single discriminatory trope we've seen against black women. But also, and to the previous point, we see that there are black women actresses in the movie. I have a real problem with the people, whether you need the check or not, signing on to something that portrays us in that way. And I think that Black Twitter should continue the dragging.
All right, Malik.
Yeah, I generally don't find these type of movies funny. Even the Wayans movie, I generally don't find them funny. This seems like just a bad movie overall. I think to Amisha's point, you know, we need to actually have a larger conversation in how black women are viewed across the board. And I think that that's what we're talking about here. His performance in this, or his assumptions about black women, are rooted in the same assumptions that people have about black women. And this is, again, and this is not just white people, or this is not just how black people are. When we think of how, when black women are mocked, that's an extension of how black women are mocked. And I think it's something that's unacceptable, and we need to really grapple with that in ways that we just choose not to.
All right, folks. So last night I saw a different movie by director Deon Taylor, A Brother. Great film. It's called The Intruder. Stars Michael Ealy and Megan Good. Tells the story of a couple who finds their dream home but can't get rid of the original owner. Take a look.
So The Intruder's more so a film about this couple who's, you know, trying to buy their first house, like a lot of couples, right? And ultimately, the guy that they buy it from is not who you think he is.
Charlie! Hey!
Good morning.
What are you doing?
What?
What are you doing?
Oh. Well, I noticed that the grass was getting out of hand, so I just went ahead.
Did you just get this out of the garage?
That's right, keep it.
Huh. What happened to Florida? I thought you'd be gone by now.
It's hard to say goodbye.
And it takes a while, and I think you see the couple kind of fall apart a little bit because one person believes he's not a good person, the other person believes, oh, he's just this or he's just that. The man acts like the house still belongs to him.
Honey, he's lonely.
And ultimately, they both end up being confronted with his real demons. And that's when just nothing but chaos ensues.
It's okay. Okay, we're not dying today. Everything I do for us.
You can't help but have fun watching this movie because it's suspenseful, and you just want to yell at the screen and tell the characters what not to do, and you want to make sure that everyone hears you because it just kind of evokes those kind of visceral reactions.
Yeah, folks. So The Intruder's out. It came in number 2 a couple of weeks ago when Avengers opened. So it did quite well. Deon Taylor's a brother. He actually directed that. And I saw it last night with my wife. She was clutching me the whole time. I was like, yo, chill out. But seriously, it is a great, great film. And so you have not seen it, go to the movies and check it out. But check your ticket stub to make sure they get proper credit. The Intruders is in movie theaters right now. All right, folks, we lost a civil rights pioneer this week, Unita Blackwell, a sharecropper who later became the first black woman mayor in the state of Mississippi and advised 6 U.S. presidents. She died on Monday at the age of 86. She was a project director and field secretary for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and helped organize voter drives for African Americans across Mississippi. She went to jail at least 70 times for her efforts. She said, quote, "I was put into the position of learning to survive some way and somehow by being black and in this country, but also being black and in this country, you learn a great lesson, and this is how to overcome. It's that power to move in the midst of opposition." We certainly appreciate Unita Blackwell for all she's done for our people and send our thoughts and prayers to her family and those who loved her. All right, folks, that's it for us here at the Museum of the Bible. I want to thank Kelly, Amisha, and Malik, our panel today. In a little bit, folks, we're going to be live streaming the panel conversation with the family members, survivors of the Emanuel 9 shooting. You don't want to miss that. This is an exclusive. Nobody else has been able to talk about this movie thus far. This is the first time doing so I certainly appreciate everybody who allowing us to do this. If you want to support us at Roland Martin Unfiltered, please go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support this show to allow us to do shows like this on remote here at the Museum of the Bible here in D.C., talking about this film and bringing to you these critically important stories. And so we'd love to have 100 of you join our fan club by supporting us via Cash App, Square, or even PayPal. Again, every dollar goes to support this show, and we certainly hope you do so. And so join our Bring the Funk fan club going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, I will see you guys tomorrow right here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. You have a great evening. Holla! Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.